Dear student, welcome to you all today's pathology session. I am Dr. Asmaul Husna, Associate Professor, Department of Pathology, Bosundhara Adin Medical College. Today, I am going to discuss a new topic, that is carcinoma of the cervix. In our last class, I have already discussed about the dysplasia of cervix. You know, the dysplasia of the cervix is known as cervical intraepithelial neoplasia. Now, what is carcinoma? When a malignant tumor that is arises from the epithelial component, that is known as carcinoma. And in the cervix, the histological subtype of cervical carcinoma are classified into squamous cell carcinoma, cervical adenocarcinoma, adenosquamous carcinoma, and neuroendocrine carcinoma. And among these carcinoma, the squamous cell carcinoma is the most common type, and which is about 80%, and the precursor lesions are high grade squamous intraepithelial lesion. And the adenocarcinoma is about 15%, and it is developed from a precursor lesion that is called adenocarcinoma in situ, and the remaining 5% carcinoma are either adenosquamous carcinoma or neuroendocrine carcinoma. And all of the above tumor types are caused by high oncogenic risk of human papilloma virus. And the peak incidence of invasive cervical carcinoma is 45 years, and this carcinoma arises from the transitional zone, that is the zone of squamo-columnar junction. Now, come to the etiopathogenesis of carcinoma of the cervix. The pathogenesis of cervical carcinoma has been delineated by a series of epidemiologic, clinico-pathologic and the molecular genetic studies. In epidemiologic data have long implicated a sexually transmitted agent, which is now established to be human papilloma virus. And what is human papilloma virus? Human papilloma virus are the DNA virus. They are subgrouped into high and low risk of oncogenic virus. And the high oncogenic risk of human papilloma virus are currently considered to be a single most important factor in cervical oncogenesis. And the low oncogenic risk of human papilloma virus are the causes of sexually transmitted valvular, perineal and perianal condyloma acuminata. And there are 15 high oncogenic risk of human papilloma virus that are currently identified. In high risk human papilloma viruses are 16, 18, 31, 33, 35, 39, 45, 51, 52, 56, 58, 59 and 68. And the low risk are human papilloma virus type 6, 11, 42, 44, 53, 54 and 62. And among the high risk human papilloma virus type 16 are contribute about 60% of the cervical carcinoma, and the human papilloma virus type 18 also causes 10% of the cervical carcinoma. The risk factors for cervical cancer are also related to both the host and the viral characteristics factor, such as human papilloma virus exposure, viral oncogenicity, inefficiency of immune responses and the presence of co-carcinogen. And the host factor include multiple sexual partner, a male partner with multiple previous or current sexual partner, young age of first intercourse, high parity, persistent infection with a high oncogenic risk, that means human papilloma virus 16 or 18, immune suppression, certain HLA subtypes, uses of oral contraceptives and use of nicotine. After the sexual activity, if the human papillomavirus exposure happen, and that mainly occurs in the cervical transformation zone, that means the squamo-columnar zone, and you know there are two type of epithelium at the squamo-columnar zone, that is squamous epithelium and another one is columnar epithelium. And if there is squamous differentiation, the patient may develop squamous intraepithelial lesion, and these squamous intraepithelial lesion are categorized into two groups. One is low grade squamous intraepithelial lesion and another one is high grade squamous intraepithelial lesion. If it is low grade and it is very rarely developed invasive squamous cell carcinoma, but if it is high grade and there are also some association like smoking, oral contraceptive, high parity, then patient may develop invasive squamous cell carcinoma. And on the other hand, after the HPV exposure in the cervical transformation zone, if the columnar differentiation occur, the patient may develop glandular intraepithelial lesion, and ultimately he also develop invasive adenocarcinoma. So, the genital human papillomavirus infection are extremely common and the most of them are asymptomatic, and the HPV infections are transient and are eliminated by the immune responses in the course of the months, but if the infection is persist, there are risk of development of cervical precancerous lesion and subsequently carcinoma of the cervix. Actually, the human papillomavirus infect the immature basal cells of the squamous epithelium in the area of epithelial breaks or immature metaplastic squamous cells that are present in the squamo-columnar junctions, and the cervix with its relatively large area of immature squamous metaplastic epithelium is particularly vulnerable to human papillomavirus infection. And although the virus can infect only the immature squamous cells and the replication of the HPV occurs in the maturing squamous cells and results in a cytopathic effect, that is known as coilocytic atypia. So, what is coilocytic atypia? There are presence of nuclear atypia with cytoplasmic perinuclear halo is known as coilocytic atypia, and this is diagnostic for the human papillomavirus infection. This is the picture that showing the mature squamous cell and the immature squamous cells and also the columnar glandular cell of a cervix, and also showing the squamo-columnar junction, that means transformation zone of the cervix. Now come to the point, squamous cell carcinoma. What findings we will get in gross examination? Invasive squamous cell carcinoma, it morphologically it may be three type. One is fungating or exophytic growth, that is also called cauliflower like growth. Number 2, ulcerative form, and lastly infiltrative growth. And during the microscopic examination, the squamous cell carcinoma are composed of nest and tongue of malignant squamous epithelium, either keratinizing or non-keratinizing, that invading the underlying cervical stroma. In case of adenocarcinoma, it is characterized by proliferation of glandular epithelium and which is composed of malignant endocervical cells with large hyperchromatic nuclei and relatively mucin depleted cytoplasm, resulting in dark appearance of the glands as compared with the normal endocervical epithelium. In adenosquamous carcinoma, the tumor is composed of intermixed malignant glandular and malignant squamous epithelium, and in neuroendocrine cervical carcinoma that typically have the appearance similar to small cell carcinoma of the lung, but it differ in being positive for human papilloma virus. Then metastasis. Metastasis can be direct spread to every local structure like peritoneum, urinary bladder, ureters, rectum and vagina, and also local and distant lymph node metastasis, and also distant spread it may involve liver, lungs and bone. And most patient dies as a consequence of local extension of the tumor into the urinary bladder, ureter, and that ultimately leading to ureteral obstruction, pyelonephritis and uremia. Then what are the screening tests of cervical cancer diagnosis, or how can we prevent the cervical cancer? Number one, cytopathological screening, that is Pap smear, that we already have discussed, and the first smear should be at the age of 21 years or within 3 years of the onset of sexual activity, and then thereafter every 3 years. After the age of 30, a woman who have had normal cytology result and are negative for HPV infection may be screened every 5 years. And in women with a normal cytology result but the test positive for high risk DNA should be cervical cytology repeated every 6 to 12 months. We can also do colposcopic examination via test, biopsy for histopathology, that is cone biopsy, HPV DNA testing, and for the prevention we can give HPV vaccination, and this HPV vaccination for both HPV type 6, 11, 16 and 18. That is all about today's sessions, my dear student. See you again in our next class. Till then, Allah Hafiz.